The future of education. What does it look like? Our vision is that it's with us, the people. Go back 100 years, the best educators were in a particular place, usually the best institution. Harvard, Oxford, Cambridge, Yale, Stanford, and so forth. That means if you ever wanted to learn from the best, you had to A, travel across the world to them, and then B, pay massive fees to enroll at whatever institution they were at. The world is so different now, yet education isn't.
There have been so many incredible advancements in the world, in so many sectors, yet for some reason, education seems to have been left behind. I often wonder why we still study and learn the same way we did exactly 20 years ago, in the same classrooms, from the same textbooks, in the same legacy institutes. We fail to realize these establishments have only become so great by virtue of the incredible educators it housed. Educators are responsible for great learning and not the building or walls they teach within.
Technology means we can access anyone from anywhere. That means we can access knowledge, insight, and experience like never before. You could go and learn from a Harvard professor and then transmit what you learned to people around the world. So that means we, the learners, don't need to necessarily go to the professor anymore, just as long as we trust you as a learner and educator now.
I genuinely believe we can learn so much more if we harness the true power of technology. Why do we still need to attend physical buildings to learn from educators who are so accessible with a click of a button? Why do we have to spend thousands of pounds to learn from the same educators that have been there, done it before? Why is it also restricted behind high walls and legacy institutes? And most often, a lot of these educators are our near peers and colleagues who are even willing to do it for free. We're so stuck in the traditional methods of learning, we never gave the real chance to new, emerging, innovative techniques, despite lots of research being done and evidence showing how effective they are. I'm talking about things like simulations, VR, AR, and everything in between. We're so reluctant to adopt new emerging technology, especially in education. I feel at times learning is becoming less engaging and stimulating and more memorizing and regurgitating.
During medical school, as president of an academic society, I trialed a peer scheme. Basically, someone a year ahead teaching someone a year behind. It was incredibly effective. It's a fertile and safe environment to learn in. So I decided to study that model and I presented it as a research paper at an international conference. The research proves it works. The research is old now. It's been over 5 years since I did my study, but the model is still not adopted formally by institutions. There's so much red tape when it comes to adopting new methodology and when trying to innovate and make things better. The previous startup I failed with could only survive by playing within the red tape. This time round, me and Abdul decided that we're just going to build it and then show the world the future.
I've noticed the world is changing though, as are the students and the teachers. As a society, we seem to be very conscious of who we learn from and where we learn from. We're less fooled by big names and brands and locations, and it's more resonating with an educator or a peer or a colleague you resonate with to learn from them. They don't even necessarily need to have a degree or higher education. In essence, education is starting to become socialized.
From our podcast of interviewing incredible people and sharing educational cases, the app Podcases was born. This is an app that allowed healthcare professionals from around the world to publish patient cases and quizzes for everyone to learn off of through our channel. We did amazing, downloads into the thousands, and the beauty is, people were paying for it. And that's because there was great value there. So we were now getting cases from various different clinicians from around the world. It showed people loved sharing and teaching, but it's hard work creating cases. We wanted to reward them, we wanted to pay them, but they never accepted. When I put out an anonymous poll about whether healthcare professionals would like a little bit of extra cash for educating, they all said they would. But healthcare professionals have this tendency where they don't like asking directly for money because it's dirty per se. They'd never take it off us despite us saying, please let us reward you and thank you, please take it. This is a problem, you see. I want people to share what they know, their experiences and their insights for others to learn off of. Passion alone cannot drive this. And that's because life has its costs. If today a shift is up for £300 and an opportunity to teach for £0, let's be serious, what are you taking? It's time consuming, and if it's not being rewarded, no one's going to choose to do it over other opportunities. It's important that it's going to be chosen, and therefore there has to be greater reward behind educating.
I think both me and Amz were going down a similar route with our Podcasts app, which was initially designed to be a novel and highly engaging form of audio-driven learning. Yet we found ourselves becoming more institutionalized. We were becoming another educational building or an establishment or an institute. Incredible content and education was now being painted under the same brush and losing the personality and touch of the original educators responsible for creating the content itself. Over time, no one really knew who the real educators were. It was just another case on the podcast app by either me or Amz.
When looking at Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, I see so many incredible educators posting amazing content, but it's all scattered, it's not organized, they're not really accessible for every learner, and fundamentally, they're not being rewarded enough for what they're doing. At this stage, I realized two things. There's a hunger to have your own channel, and there is an underlying appetite to be rewarded in the long term. I put out another poll at this stage. What modality would be best to start with to get the world sharing knowledge in the healthcare world? Quizzes won that. And I understand why too. It's got the lowest barrier to entry whilst a very high learning potential. That's where we were going to start. Now, traditional quiz banks, they take responsibility. You don't know the authors of the quizzes that you do. Where's the credit for that person who wrote that? How much do they earn from the hard work they put in? I'll tell you, it's very little.
It's hard to spend months building a product and putting it out there to only realize what you're doing is exactly the same thing you set out to avoid. And as a result, me and Amz have realigned our focus. I feel we've learned a lot from you, our users, our listeners, and our podcast app. And we genuinely believe the future of education is social. Everyone has the right to be an educator. They deserve to get acknowledged for their work, and they deserve to be fairly compensated. And most importantly, they still have the right to own it and not having it to give it up. As an educator, we need to ensure their content doesn't get institutionalized.
This is where we now pivot podcasts to what we believe will harness peer-to-peer education like never before. Let's give people their own profiles and channels. Let's allow people to earn an income passively from engagement. Let's allow educators to focus on teaching and not marketing, branding and other distracting tasks. A simple system. You put up educational content that engages learners and teaches them a thing or two to then earn reward.
And I'm willing to take a bet and say, in the coming next few years, we'll start to see many more individual educators starting to teach at scale high quality content that was previously reserved for the institutes like Harvard, all while being fairly rewarded and acknowledged. And like Amz always says, you don't need to go to Harvard to learn from Harvard. You can start to learn from your peers at Harvard instead.
Let's start off with the most basic reward that everyone in the world expects from putting in work, but for some reason healthcare professionals and educators are left out of: money and credit. That's what we're delivering. Welcome to Peerr. We are socializing education. This is the platform where you share what you know with your experience and insights to learners across the world. We connect people rather than sell you banks of notes, quizzes or videos from ourselves. When you connect people for learning, there is no restriction. Everyone is unique, and so you're not limited to only a specific knowledge bank. Educators, we reward you like never before. Now you're credited. It's your face and account. It's your channel. As long as you have a passion to teach, you can do so and earn off of engagement. Learners, you are now given the world's knowledge, experience and insight. It's quizzes today, but it's going to be so much more tomorrow. I invite you to join me on this journey to socialize education.